Je suis Annie Gérin, la doyenne de la Faculté des Beaux-Arts de l'Université Concordia. I'm delighted to welcome you to our annual Wild Talk series with Martha Wainwright. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that Concordia University is located on unceded indigenous lands. The Kanien'kehá:ka Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Tiohtià:ke, or Montréal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of indigenous and other peoples. C'est dans le respect des liens avec le passé, le présent et l'avenir que nous reconnaissons les relations continues entre les peuples autochtones et toutes les autres personnes de notre communauté. The Wild Talks annual series was launched in 2017 to honor my colleague and friend, Catherine Wild, a former dean of Concordia's Faculty of Fine Arts. This lecture series reflects how Concordia and the Faculty of Fine Arts foster a vibrant and dynamic arts community across our city, our province, and our country. Wild Talks also brings some of the most influential and thought-provoking artists of the day. Past speakers have included multidisciplinary artist Sherry Boyle, dancer and choreographer Louise Le Cavalier, award-winning photographer Edward Bertinsky, and the late filmmaker Jean-Marc Vallée. Along with a public lecture, each one of these artists has also given a master class or conducted studio visits with Concordia students. And this year, our special guest will be sharing her songwriting expertise with a group of very lucky students from our Department of Music. Wild Talks is made possible thanks to the continued support of Emerald Investments. We're grateful to their generosity. La pertinence de ces échanges entre artistes, étudiants et nos communautés réside dans leur capacité à nourrir notre curiosité, notre créativité et aussi inspirer les collaborations ou de nouveaux projets porteurs. This commitment to building bridges between artists, students, and communities is also what motivated us to create our new School of Performance, a first in Quebec. Launching next fall, the school will unite our departments of contemporary dance, music, and theater under one umbrella. United, they will foster interdisciplinary explorations, innovative teaching, and deeper engagement with Montreal's artistic ecosystem. We're absolutely thrilled to announce this. I'm glad you're thrilled as well. This marks an exciting new chapter for the faculty, one that will help solidify the role and the relevance of the performing arts in Montréal and in Quebec, and continue to redefine how we learn, how we create, and how we connect with our communities through performance. With this in mind, I invite you to watch a video that celebrates the people behind one of North America's largest and most distinguished art and design schools.
Students who study the arts are bold, unafraid to question, to experiment, to push the limits. Concordia's Faculty of Fine Arts embraces our audacity. With 9 departments, ours is the largest faculty of its kind in Canada. Our nearly 300 professors and 4,000 students explore the visual, performing, and design arts as well as the humanities. our community blurs boundaries between mediums to tell new kinds of stories, create sustainable designs and practices, share the therapeutic power of the arts, and help society come together and ponder new possibilities. Concordia is part of an ecosystem that enlivens culture across Montreal and beyond. At graduation, our students join an alumni network of trailblazers, making their mark around the world. To tackle tomorrow's biggest challenges requires the creativity of fine arts students. As we mark 50 years of impact, we look to you to help us continue to make things that matter.
I have to say I have the best job in the world. So tonight, we have the privilege of welcoming an artist whose voice and storytelling have left a lasting mark on many, the incomparable Martha Wainwright. Her fearless songwriting, powerful performances, and deeply personal artistic journey resonate across generations, and we are honored to host her this evening. We're also fortunate to have this conversation guided by Cecil Castellucci. Cecil is an award-winning New York Times best-selling author and Eisner-nominated writer whose work spans novels, graphic novels, comics, opera, librettos, and music. After studying film production at Concordia, Cecil joined Montreal's alt-rock scene, forming the band Bite, among other musical projects. They then went on to publish a number of books and graphic novels, including Shade, The Changing Girl, Boyproof, The Plain Janes, Female Furies, Bad Girls, and Shifting Earth. Cecil has also written 3 opera librettos that integrate comics and performance, and continues to expand their artistic practice through new projects, including works inspired by exploratory spacecraft. Did I mention that Cecil is a NASA Solar System ambassador? So we're very proud to count Cecil among the members of our creative community here at Concordia. Alors, sans plus attendre, souhaitons d'abord la bienvenue à Cecil Castellucci.
Martha is an internationally renowned singer-songwriter with over 2 decades of industry experience. Critically acclaimed for her rawness and emotional honesty of both her vocals and lyrics, her albums include Martha Wainwright, 2005, I Know You're Married, But I've Got Feelings Too, 2008, Come Home to Mama, 2012, and the Juno-nominated Songs in the Dark, 2015, a collaboration with her half-sister, Lucy Wainwright Roche. Goodnight City, 2016. Her latest album, Love Will Be Reborn, came out in 2021. She's also an actress. She was featured in Martin Scorsese's The Aviator and the HBO special Olive Kitteridge. Born into music royalty, the daughter of folk legends Kate McGarrigle and Loudon Wainwright III, and sister to the highly acclaimed singer Rufus Wainwright, she grew up in a world filled with incomparable musical legends. Anna McGarrigle, Leonard Cohen, Susie Roche, and Richard and Linda Thompson, and Emily Lou Harris, just to name a few. She struggled to find her voice in a milieu in which every drama was refracted through song. Then in 2005, she released her critically acclaimed debut album, Martha Wainwright, containing the blistering hit Bloody Motherfucking Asshole, which the Sunday Times called one of the best songs of the year, and I know I wore out my CD player playing it. That album actually was just recently re-released, and that release and the albums that followed showcased her searing songwriting and established her as a powerful, sui generis voice to be reckoned with. Please welcome Martha Wainwright. Okay, I have about 50 billion questions, but like I said, we're probably only going to get to 6.
Okay.
But the one that I wanted to start off with, and this will sort of like sort of dovetail into family stuff, is your voice. I mean, your voice is so unique, and the way that you use it is so much your own thing. I mean, it really is just, and just gets better with time. How did you find your way to your voice and to the way that you sing? And maybe that can dovetail in with like family influence in that. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I had a lot of influences around me. My parents are both great singers. My dad's a great singer, Loudon Wainwright, and my mom was a great singer. And, I had to grow up across the hall from Rufus, Wainwright, he's an okay singer. But, the thing is, at nighttime, our bedrooms were kind of kitty corner, and we tried to out-sing each other, and over the evening, and the last person to singing was the winner, and but I'm a little younger, so I fell asleep first. I needed my beauty rest, but so obviously that was there from an early age, but I and also folk singing in the family, this idea of blending your voice and the way siblings sound when they're singing together. And one of the things that was, my mother used to stand behind me, and when we would sing in harmony, and she'd pull my hair a little bit if I got the note wrong, but also if it was also about blending in and not necessarily doing little trills that we want to do, like, whoa, making that sound. And then when you had the opportunity to, maybe you're going to do your own song at some point in the living room or at a folk festival or something, then that was your moment to, kind of dig down into your feelings and your thoughts and try and connect with the person inside of you. This is my aunt Anna McGarrigle talked about this thing, where when I'm singing, she suggested when I was starting out to really try and make this connection between the sound and this person inside of you. And then that has really been my guide. But really going between trying to stand out with your voice and get some airtime in a group of people that really, where there was not a lot of room. So you really did have to sort of stand out in some way in some moments. But then also serving the music and, closing your eyes or, doing the backup part or finding the sound and letting the music be more important, really, than anything. And so there was that aspect that came from the family and singing together. But then, like all young people, I was listening to the singers of the time, whether it was Cyndi Lauper or Annie Lennox, mostly female singers, Tina Turner, the pop singers of my generation. And you have to try things out with your voice when you're young. You try singing like that person, you try singing bluesy or all that stuff, and then eventually, through all of that stretching, you go back to what is that thing that resonates that my Aunt Anna was talking about. It's like what, so really long answer, but it did take a long time because it does take this sort of, maybe in a family of singers, I felt like I did have to do some real searching, some real finding to make it, to have my own story. And it was really my voice. I felt that was going to be the guide. So I did have to find it, and I struggled with it. I also, even when I was like 5, I had more than now even, I had a really raspy voice. And there's like recordings of me singing as an 8 and like a 10-year-old for some films that Kate and Anna did the music for, and you can really hear this kind of like twangy voice. And then when I was in my 20s, I smoked a lot, and there was always a battle. There was like an intensity which people oftentimes appreciated when I was young, but it kind of hurt too. But people were like, God, I really love that sound, that, and I was like, ow. And
did you feel like you had to keep pushing
I felt like I
that?
had to kind of push it,
Right.
and I was kind of like, but But I feel in the last, whatever, 10 years or something, it's gotten better because it's like, actually, I want to have all the high range and the middle range and the low range and the subtlety and all this
Right.
stuff. And then I've learned in the last 10 years how to take care of my voice. And so it's really a long relationship. And
To
with this
finding,
person.
to finding your
it.
voice. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's so interesting because I mean, obviously, you still do a lot of the family blending and
Yeah.
stuff like that, like like you did with your sister, doing the lullabies and
Yeah.
stuff, and then and then the Christmas family show that you do. I'm curious, what was your first solo show that you did?
Right.
Like, what was the first show that you did by yourself?
Jailhouse Rock.
What?
So Jailhouse Rock was a club on Mount Royal.
Saint Laurent.
On Saint Laurent, and I had sung a little bit with my brother Rufus. When he started writing songs, when he was like 18, 19, maybe 17, and he got me as his backup singer, and he would just tell me what to do, as you could imagine. He'd have me singing these crazy high notes, these really long notes, which is probably why also. I sing the way I do, is that he really did push me. And so when I saw that he was getting attention, I was like, well, I want to write songs too. And so I tried writing songs, but I was intimidated to do that because he was always in the living room playing the piano, and I was kind of, I wouldn't say shy, but I was uncertain how I was going to get in here with a household full of musicians and very respected songwriters, and so I used a guitar, and I could bring that into my room and sort of craft. And it wasn't until songs were fully crafted that I then showed my mom and my brother, and I think they were both kind of really surprised,
Right.
like, wow, that's pretty good, And so I had 3 or 4 songs, and I booked a show at the Jailhouse Rock, and I did a couple of covers too. And I had, he was my first boyfriend, Michel Jacques. He was in a band called Tichy Blues, and he played the conga, and I remember the show, and I don't remember a lot of shows, but I remember the black top tables, and my mom and my aunt came to see me play, and they sat a little further back so I wouldn't see them, and I didn't stop. I haven't stopped since then, really, and it's been kind of like the same for the last 35 years, I guess, or almost.
I
30
love
years.
you talking about the lesson that you learned from your aunt, and sort of like the sort of little push that you got from Rufus in terms of like, tell me what to do or whatever. Are there any other lessons that you sort of feel that you've kept with you from anybody else in your family or your extended family? We were talking about that.
Yeah,
Backstage.
all the incredible people, because obviously I had the chance of, through nepotism, to be able to meet a lot of, through my own family, but then also I got to meet and sing with people like Emmylou Harris and Linda Ronstadt, and so these kind of incredible people who are legends, and so I watched them. Very, very soon it was. I loved male songwriters like Bob Dylan and my dad, but I recognized myself more in female songwriters and watched also, the life that they had chosen. Oftentimes the life that was maybe, a real choice, especially past generations, and also my mom and my aunt Kate and Anna, to an extent, had didn't follow through as much as they could on their career because they had young children and they chose to stay home with their kids. But then there were other artists like Emmylou who went out and worked night after night after night. And so I could see this sort of schism possibility for myself too, and the chutzpah or the choice that these women made to do it, and the sacrifices that they made to do it, and that you can hear in their voices. You know what I mean? Because all of these women have really strong, intense, real voices, and you can feel the some of the sadness and some of the pain and the joy of it too. But that really, they're bringing their life on stage with them, I find. And I think that was also a guide for me as a singer, because there was folk influence with Kate and Anna, but I also, like the edginess of Marian Faithfull or whatever it was, so, but feeling and hearing their lives as if they brought them on stage with them, I think was also the guide.
Big lesson as well.
Yeah.
You were talking about, we were talking at my house about your mom and how supportive she was with you, and when you got your first job and that, I was maybe hoping that you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was like, I guess I might be 15 or 14 or 15, and I had moved back to Montreal. I spent the year in New York City I lived with my dad for 1 year. It was an absolute disaster. I think it was fine, but it almost killed him, he said, but I think it's normal. And I had a great time. I didn't go to school very much, but but I got back to Montreal in grade 10, and I met a bunch of cool kids from Myland, Uchima, where we had moved to, and they were at Pigielou at the local high school, and I was at another high school, but I made friends with this girl, and she said this, it was, I guess, near the end of the year, and she was going to the coffee shop to see if she could get a job at Van Hook Coffee on Laurier. And so I decided to accompany her, and I was like, well, I'll apply for the job too. I'll meet the manager or whatever. And I got the job, and I got home to tell my mom, and I was excited, like, oh, I'm going to work at this coffee shop, and they pay me whatever it is an hour. And she was really kind of disappointed and kind of like, don't do that. Don't. She says, okay. But she's like, I'll pay you to write songs and to, follow your intuition and to practice and to, continue in this endeavor, because, you're just, this guy's just going to tell you what to do, and he's just going to, take advantage of, you're just going to get in this grinder thing, and I didn't, I wanted the money, so I took the job, but I really did appreciate that she didn't insist on me working, or even also Rufus had a couple of jobs too, but not many. And I think she really wanted and really believed in us to that we could become artists. And recently, at my son's school, they asked if I would do it was like career day. Mm-hmm. He goes, he's at a high school, and I was thinking, oh yeah, career day, and then I thought, I don't think they want me to do a career day, because basically my advice would be, don't have a backup plan as an artist. And I was like, I don't think that these people's parents want me to tell them what I really think, which is, don't get a degree in something else if you want to be an artist. But, so I guess that was sort of her thinking.
But I mean, I love that because
although she did have a degree in physics from McGill, my mother. So but she knew she would never teach. Sorry, continue.
But I was going to say is that it's like, because it is a calling to be an artist. It's really a full-time commitment. It is your job, even though, like, I think we talked about this too. It's like sometimes I have fantasies of like, maybe I could be a receptionist somewhere and just like answer phones and sign for some packages and like just have a quiet little receptionist life, because it's so hard being an artist.
Well, it really occurred to me in my early 20s. I was living in New York City, and I was getting up and writing songs. I'd never had a job in New York because I started working right away. First I was Rufus's backup singer when I was like 17, 18, and then I started making music, and then I could go on the road as his backup singer and then be the opening act, and I could sell, I press up a little EP and a cassette, and I could sell that, no middleman. And so I remember I lived in Bed-Stuy area, and I had like a room that was $300 a month. the bathroom was in the hall, shared, and I had a drawer with cash in it, like lots, like, you know, so I was able to make a living somewhat, you know, doing this. And so I was kind of proud of myself, but I was tired. I was not tired, but I was emotionally drained a lot of the time, and because you have to, even though, you know, you're lying in bed and nobody's telling you that you have to show up and you have to clock in at any time. Nobody's telling you, be here at this moment, and you go home at 4 o'clock, and then you have, you know, so it has to come always from you. And it's like this battle. And it's like this, you know, of sort of pacing around, you know, smoking cigarettes or smoking pot or going out and hanging out, and then eventually realizing I need to write some songs or else there won't be anything, you know, or else I will have to go back to school and get a degree or get a job that I don't know, and I don't know what else to do. So then you have to force yourself to have some discipline, you know, which is it's an odd looking discipline. It can just to create, to work, and then to book shows, and I just booked shows every night. So it did, not every night, but I played like 4 or 5 times a week in New York City in clubs and stuff, and then I would go out to LA and stuff, and I needed the structure, because without that, it is really hard, because it has to come from you. You know?
The self-motivation.
Yeah, the self-motivation.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Like, what do you think the DIY sort of mentality has taught you, like, how to survive as an artist, like, in today's sort of algorithm, you know, world?
Well, I feel, you know, I feel like I'm not, I don't, the advice that I had, you know, from my parents, my dad who started him, he made his first record when he was 20 years old. And he hasn't stopped. He still makes records. And, you know, he told me, you know, get a lawyer, and then start a retirement fund, like, right away. You know, so that was a piece of advice that I took. My mother gave me advice on, you know, buy a house early on, you know, whatever, put 20% down, whatever her advice was. And it's funny, because I don't know if they apply as well to the world now of algorithms and of social media. Because I do find myself, like, am I able to apply what I know about how to make a living and how to have some security onto this new way of really being staying famous and being known,
or just breaking through
in any way. And so that's, you know, why also it's, you know, I mean, I have a manager who posts for me because I'm not good at it. I try and make sure that people, you know, he tries to make sure that people, like, you know, take videos of me backstage to try and keep that up. So there is a certain amount, because I do feel uncomfortable. I don't feel, it's not a natural thing for me to be, you know, looking at myself and talking about myself. You know, I don't like necessarily what I see in return. The filler is not, it's like, it's not happening. I'm like, I need Botox, shit. You know, like, I don't have it. And so I'm like, oh man, this is not going to look what I think it's supposed to look like, you know. And so it is. I think it's going to be a tricky one. But you know, in talking this way, I mean, isn't that what all older people feel? I mean, isn't that the point in some ways of younger people need to have something that's their own?
Yeah, but I think the
I had to live my
algorithm
parents'
makes
life,
it difficult for people to discover new things, you know, because there's sort of the lack of browsing and stuff. And I just, like, really wonder, like, about the lessons learned from your punk, you know, like, scrappy days and, like, my punk scrappy days. Like, what skill set did that sort of give us to survive as mid-career artists?
Okay, so the,
you know?
the skill set that gave me was driving, you know, this weekend, you know, driving myself or my partner drive part of the way to, you know, Waterloo and Richmond, and doing gigs night after night with my guitar, do it yourself, pack up the merch, play for almost 2 hours solo on stage, and connect. And before going on stage, sometimes I'm like, why the fuck am I, you know, this is like, this is fucking sucks. What the fuck? Another crucifix in Quebec, You know, like I don't, you know, I'm playing at another convent. Like, where is this going? Why aren't I at the Grammys or whatever it is? You know. But then the show starts, and about halfway through, I'm like, I'm fucking good at this, and people are liking this, and I'm going to get paid.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to be home by midnight.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody will record it and post it and let them do the fucking work because I don't want to do it. The other way to do it, I co-wrote a song with Patrick Watson and he loves, you know, posting. So I just tack myself onto people like that. Let them do it.
Love it. No, but I do think it is an important skill set because it's like you have this facility to go from, I mean, you could even sing a cappella. Like, you don't even need the guitar, you know, to let's bring out the strings, you know? And so that, I think, versatility, you know, makes for, you know, you as like such a diverse artist, you know, in the things that you can do. And, you know, I mean, the acting that you can do. Yeah. I'm going to jump to that now because you went to Concordia.
I did.
For acting.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your time here and maybe is there any lesson from one of your acting classes that you sort of kept with you?
Well, I didn't finish in acting. I think I did 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And well, the big lesson, so I wanted to do acting because everybody in my family was doing music. And I was like, well, I want to be a little bit different, you know? And I was I graduated from a really interesting high school, Collège Rachel, that happened to have an incredible theater department. And we did like Molière, and we did Ionesco, and we did a Michel Tremblay play, we did Les Belles Sœurs, and he came. Like for some reason, there was a really cool theater thing going on there. So I got into Concordia, and I started doing theater. And it was right at the time, though, that I started writing songs too. And pretty quickly there was a conflict in that, you know, from my acting classes, they were really kind of asking me to sort of come in more of a blank slate and sort of, you know, lessen my, you know, personality in some way in order to be more of a palette for a character and then the other instinct was like me, like what am I thinking? Or this guy did this to me, and like all so autobiographical writing. And so there was an automatic conflict.
Yeah.
And one of my acting teachers was like kind of nonplussed that I was doing shows as a singer and writing my own songs because I wasn't singing, you know, musicals or whatever. So, you know, I was like, I made a choice, you know, and I don't know if it was the right choice. It was the choice that I made, but what I did realize pretty soon afterwards, and in the acting that I've done, because I've done a little bit, you know, since then, was the craft of acting really does require a lot. You know, and I couldn't have done both. And I don't know if it's possible. There's not many examples of musicians who are also great actors and vice versa because they are totally different things. And it's not like, oh, I can be an actor because I can stand on stage and I know about standing on stage. It's not that. It's years of craft. It's years of ability, and I'm not trained to do it, you know. And my nightmares that I have are not about being on stage and not having my guitar or not having my clothes on. My nightmare is it's opening night and I'm the lead and I don't know my lines, you know, and that's because I know that I don't really know. I don't feel confident as an actor, although I'm going to come back to, I'm actually not bad. I've done some acting. It's kind of actually good at it.
This is what we were saying backstage, right? I mean, I feel like it's really interesting because, you know, thank goodness.
That's because I'm old.
No, but thank goodness you followed your voice because I think that's a really, really hard thing for people to do, to be brave enough to follow their unique voice because, you know,
I followed a guy too. But
well, I mean, that's why I moved to California.
Exactly.
Too.
It was like a singer-songwriter guy. Exactly. I was like, I'm quitting school. No.
But I think it's a brave choice to craft your own voice, and I feel like theater or drama or performance in that way, now you're solid in your voice, and so you could allow yourself to be a blank slate because it's
absolutely,
later,
and I'm also
you know?
bored of myself. Like I'm like enough already. But but also, you know, the songwriting at 19 or 17 or 20 is different than the songwriting in my 40s, and also over the last 30 years, you know, I've interpreted a lot of songs. I've done a lot of Piaf recently. I did Laura Nero, and you know, I've sung a lot of my parents' music. I've sung a lot of folk music. I've done things for people's films. You know, I've really exercised my voice in a crazy way and how to do different things. And that has made me more open, you know, because when you're singing Laura Nero or Edith Piaf and these songs that you haven't written, you're sort of wondering what they're about and who this person was about, and you know what, and then I couldn't have done that at 20, you know what I mean? But I can do it now.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about both of those projects, but I'm also really interested in hearing about how you craft a song. Like, I want to talk about the process. Like, do the words come first, or does the music come first? Is it always different? Is it different now than it was when you were in your 20s? I know this is a lot of questions that are coming at you. I know that you said that you like to go sort of and be by yourself, but is there room for growth and like change in that sense?
Well, it's funny because I've always written songs by myself because I am shy. Like if I'm at home writing a song and somebody comes in, I stop right away. Or if there's, you know, lyrics written on a piece of paper, I close the book so nobody sees it because I don't know if it's shy, but I'm kind of embarrassed. I want it to be, you know, done before I present it. And sometimes when I'm writing, when I don't do this as much, but definitely early on and in my 20s when I was playing more, I would play, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, you know, when you're starting. I don't do that anymore, but when I was starting and playing, and I would maybe have, you know, 4 or 5 different songs that I was writing at once and work on them, and then if I had a show maybe the next night or something, I would sit in the room and look to the corner and perform the songs like without stopping to say, okay, is this ready? And the shows were almost like it was almost like my I had to clock in for it. You know, it's like because I have the show, I got to get this thing done. You know what I mean? I have to remember the lyrics.
Your deadline.
It was my deadline. It's like, okay, the song is done because I have to have it done. Because I don't want to go do the same 4 songs that I did, you know, last month over and over and over and over again. A lot of the same people are in the audience. I need to present them something new, and so I would sort of perform to the corner of a room, like maybe what you would do as an actor, you know, and sort of see if I could sell myself the song, you know, like, you know, doing, and so that was a part of it when I was younger. There's less of that now, but usually the melody comes first in my songs because there's a lot of melody, but where the melody comes normally from like a line. You know, like a poetic line, you know, and so if the melody is, you know, whatever, I've been going around the bend. I did a song of mine. I've been going around the bend. You try and find the melody that sounds good with those words and where you know, where the syllable lands, you know. So that's where it starts. And so if I go, okay, I've been going around the bend. And then I go, okay, why am I saying that? You know, what is it why is that coming out of me in that way? And I go, oh, okay, I think that's in reference to the fact that these days I'm feeling such and such. And then I'll try and like dig deeper into that. And then I'll say, okay, this verse, I'll talk about that experience. And so I have these kind of little things to hook something on, but I'm always trying to search. It usually comes from something that's happening that I'm feeling that's like overpowering, and a phrase and a melody that's sort of, so it's like a brushstroke or something. That's how that works.
No, I find it really fascinating because I know with my own practice, like I say that I write a novel this one way, but then each novel is its own thing. And I'm sure it's the same thing with songs, where it's like, it's like in general, that's the way that you do it. But you also say that you do a lot by yourself, but that you've been trying to sort of
Recently I tried, I said I co-wrote a song with Patrick Watson, and because I was like, Martha, you got to do this. This guy does really well. He's got like 1 billion hits and on TikTok, and it's like a big deal, and you should. And I kind of was like dreading it, because I don't feel prepared in the sense of, when you go in and you songwrite with people who co-write a lot, They're usually kind of really know what they're doing. They're pretty good at their instrument. They're like, okay, well, let's go to the B flat here and let's change to the G, and you got this like kind of brill building feeling. You're thinking, you're like, oh yeah, sure, we gotta go to the bridge, do it again. And I'm very like intimidated by that kind of speed with the instrument. I'm always like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I have to feel it, and like discover, and I'm not used to people watching that process. So I was like, oh God, what am I gonna do? And so I went to the first, get together, and he had a lot of ideas, men, and so this one, like, yeah, sure, whatever, and no, just kidding. And so and so he had a lot of ideas. We could do this, we could do that, and he's like playing the piano. He's got these chords, and he's recording everything, and I'm like, okay, and I said, give me a couple hours, I'm going to come back, and so I needed to sort of have my kind of armor almost. I needed something in my cavalry to be like, how about this line? How about this line? You know what I mean? And then I realized I'm actually really good at it.
Yeah.
As long as I as I push through and be like, what about if we do this and and you have to like, and then we were able, and I was like, oh no, this is great because I can, he's got all these floaty ideas of like, and then the birds and the didn't. And I'm like, well, what are you really saying? Let's get it. Yeah. And I think what he wanted from me was this kind of like grittier type of songwriting, which maybe I do, where I'm like, I don't know, I'm swearing or I'm saying something that's a little bit offensive. And I was like, I can give you that, because I feel it right now. So it's fine,
But see, I mean, I love that because, like, in writing, there's like, write the hero's journey, men, right? Yeah. And I'm like, what about the heroine's journey? And I feel like it's the same thing. It's like there's the way that you write. There's the way that people who do that do a co-write, but you have experience and you know what you're doing. And so, and it's like a matter of like having that experience. And like we were talking about, over the table and at a party or whatever, it's like, I think as we come into mid-career, it's like important to explore these sort of other avenues. Like, do you think it's important to do things that kind of frighten you and scare you?
I think, and I wouldn't have been able to do that, because I tried to co-write when I was younger, and I did have a hard time with it, and it was, now I'm able to sort of bring more to the, because I'm like, I've been through some shit, so you're not going to really be able to totally razz me, right. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to be okay, and so, and also, I have a voice too, because I can always be like, well, what about if we sing like, la, 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 like I can dictate a certain amount of things, but I did learn a lot from that experience, because one thing I learned about it was that in some ways it's easier to sort of have a formula and kind of be like, okay, this is the exercise. We're going to get together and we're going to write this song. Or this is, you need to have a verse done by noon or whatever it is. You're like, okay, yeah, no problem. And it's kind of harder to be sitting in an empty room with just the acoustic guitar, no pedals, no recording gear, and be like, we want, where you want something. I want my next Bloody Motherfucking Asshole song so that I can retire and it's not coming. You know what I mean? So but it's hard. That is harder to kind of come from nothing or just yourself or just the acoustic guitar. It is stressful.
Do you think you'll do more of that? Do you think you'll sort of?
Yeah, I think I should. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm always going to I just want to write a great song too on my own, because I guess that's the challenge that I'm always giving myself, because I've never been sure about myself in that way. And that's okay, you know. And also my songwriting is very, you know, it's, well, a lot of songwriters do this, and I think it's the same for me. You know, I probably rewrite the same 4 or 5 songs.
I write
you know,
the same with books.
There's like this quiet one, and then there's that fast one, and you know, then you see this sort of similarity. And most songwriters are like that, you know. But you're just wanting to get to that good one, you know, and it be your sound, you know, and that's really what I want.
But it's also, it's not like you write something, and I say you as like any artist, like you write something, you're like, that's it, I'm done. I mean, I guess maybe somebody does, but like, you know, it's the job of being an artist is to constantly be honing your craft, and to constantly, like, when you write your next song, your next bloody motherfucking asshole, when you write that song, then you will write the next one after. You will want to write the next one after that, you know?
Maybe.
Which is good.
Yeah, no, that is good. Well, I think, but what you're also talking about is you know, because there's a lot of different ways to be in the biz, and there are songwriters who write songs for people and then get someone like Pink to sing them, and then they stay at home and they count their money, you know, like that is a way.
But that's different.
That is different.
That's not the choice that you made.
Than the person getting in the car with the merch and doing the 2 hours. I mean, I guess I'm attached to the troubadour aspect of it. I'm attached to that.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you are an international traveler, international voyager in your touring and stuff. How do you balance being on tour and family life and motherhood?
Well, that's been, you know, that's the, those are my children, but that was a while ago. But the reason I picked that picture, the little one with their little, is that in the back there's a poster of my record coming out, and we saw that in Chinatown. So, but to me that was a big moment to have the 2 little kids in front of the poster of my album coming out, because it was at a moment when I was sort of returning after having 2 children, returning into the music biz, newly separated from their dad, and there was a lot of, how is this going to go? What's going to happen? Because there aren't a lot of examples of women who are able to balance or do both. You know, there is, you can't do it all. One is going to be sacrificed, you know, and it's and it depends on how, you know, you can't be home all the time for your kids and go on the road, and you can't be on the road all the time and be, you know, it's just not possible. So you make these decisions based on sort of your individual wants and needs, and you know, and to support my family financially. So I gotta stay in the loop. I'm not able to write songs for that other singers are singing and that are making me money. So I have to keep working, but I don't want to not spend time with my kids. That was not an option. So it was really a big thing for me. And I don't, you know, when I'm out on the road, and when I've been out on the road the last 10 years, it's almost like me and I'll see another mom, and it's almost like we see each other and we know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We know that after the gig in Rouen-Noranda, I've hired somebody to drive me home to make breakfast for the, you know, kids next day. I will be drinking a beer in the back of that van. Yeah. You know, like, you know, but I'm that's the, like, I've cut into everything in order to try. And sometimes, you know, you miss birthdays and things like that. But it's everything that I ever wanted was to do both, you know, and it's what I watched, like my mom and my aunt. My mom felt that she had given up a lot of her career in order to stay home with her kids, which she did. Anna was more happy to stay at home. Anna wasn't sure. My mother wanted to maybe perhaps be more like, do be more famous and tour more, like Emmylou Harris, and artists like that. But she instead, I think, put all of her energy into Rufus and I, and really wanted us to do it. And so in a way, my mom died when my first child was born, and so basically at the same time. And so I guess I felt a responsibility to myself, to my children, but also to my mother, to try and make happen what seems to me that no one had ever, that there are not many examples of. When you're on the road touring, and this is, I think a lot of parents feel this, you know, traveling is not very conducive to parenting, you know, and I'd be in an airport and I'd see the kids playing in the little play areas of a plane, you know, like when they have like kind of like little kid areas, and you know, my heart would be breaking, and I would go, why can't it be? Why? I was thinking, well, I should take them out of school, and we're going to be join the circus, and I'm going to bring them with me, and I'm going to homeschool them, and there's no. It seems, you know, it doesn't work, so it's just been hard.
Do you think that it, like, in contrast to like when your mom and aunt were doing music and that was harder? I mean, I guess people would say, "Oh, it's easier now," but it's still very difficult. What do you think? What do you think the industry could do to help women?
Well, I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like it's a little bit easier for men. I mean, I know plenty of men that have been on the road.
Well, and it's more, you know, and to be, you know, I want to be, you know, one of the things, and I'll be completely honest with you because that's the way I am. You know, and I talk about it in my book a bit. You know, I had a terrible divorce with the children's father, who was a band member, and you know, and he basically said to me, you know, you're not going to see these kids all the time, and so it was really devastating for me. But also, because I didn't have full custody of the kids. When he had the kids, I was so depressed to be in town, knowing that they were around the corner, that I worked.
Right.
And I would just try and go to my agent and be like, okay, these are the weeks that I can work. Now, it didn't always work out perfectly.
Right.
But it was a way that I could stay, I could survive not being around the kids and be like, well, at least I'm fucking doing something,
Right.
and I'm paying all the bills and I'm doing it,
Right.
you know? And
Right.
so I that was the silver lining in that situation. I was
Right.
like, I got to make this a good thing, otherwise I want to kill myself.
Right.
You know? So, you know, necessities, I don't know if that's
Yeah,
a good,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just like that did work out. And how, to answer your question, you know, music, the other thing that happened in my divorce, which was interesting, is we were at the Palais de Justice a lot, and it's a terrible, horrible building and place. And, you know, I remember at one point I was in front of one judge, and, you know, judges are conservative people, you know, and they said, oh, hey, Martha Wainwright, vous êtes chanteuse. You know, like, you're a singer.
Right.
And, you know, because we were talking about custody stuff, and it's like, vous travaillez beaucoup la nuit. And I was just like, you know what, I'm fucked. You know?
Yeah.
And sorry for the language, you know, and I was like, people don't like women who work at night. They don't like women who work in clubs. They don't like, you know, I'm like, it doesn't fit with the structure of the Napoleonic law that we still have here.
Right.
Anyway, so, you know, I was like, man, this is going to be tough, you know, but I found my way, you know, folk festivals. I was like, folk festivals, bring the kids with me.
Yeah.
Can I do a 5 o'clock show? There are ways to do it, you know, like I want to work, picking like family-friendly folk festivals and things like, because I was like, when I was a kid, I would go with my mom to the Winnipeg Folk Fest and the Philadelphia Folk Festival, and I was like, yes, and now the kids are older, they can stay at home on their own, they're fine, it's fine, it all worked out, but it was definitely really hard to navigate, and I definitely did feel, because the guys that have their guitars and are staying out until 2, they're not. They're not being judged.
They're not worried. Yeah, they're not being judged and they're not worried about it. I mean, I'm sure they're worried about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it causes them pain.
Totally. And it's,
and I'm
of
sure,
course,
but it's
and
just that
everybody's different.
the society is structured differently for them
exactly.
to be able to like sort of do that.
And I think that I just to finish on this, and I know I don't want to draw this whole thing. It's like, but what I've been able to do has been different because women in the past, from 50 years ago, 100 years ago, would have had to give up their children.
Exactly.
And jazz singers, and they made a choice. When they chose to become singers, they had to give up their kids oftentimes. And it probably was one of the reasons that they died of alcoholism. Whatever,
Right.
it's just like, whatever,
Yeah.
not to be dramatic.
Speaking of dramatic, I want to talk about your book for a minute. So I loved your book. It was amazing.
I loved your book.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you.
Amazing. Check it out, Girl on Film.
Yep.
So great.
So that's my memoir.
Yeah.
One thing, okay, so your songs, confessional, your book, confessional, which one was easier to be sort of truthful? You know what I mean?
Well, lawyers had to look at the book a lot. So when you're writing songs, you're allowed to couch things and say things in poetic ways and when I was writing the book, I really had to choose my words carefully, but I also didn't want to be censored, but I also didn't want it to be a rant about, my personal issues at that moment, and so it took me a long time to write it for various reasons. I would put it away for a while and then come back to it. And if the thing still seemed pertinent enough as a story, then it stayed in there, even if it was a little edgy or whatever. But it had to be pertinent. It couldn't just be like superfluous ranting, anger, pissed offness. It had to be something that really the anger or the edginess of it was because on the other side there was a softness or there was something that was important to say that was really more about love. And I think that does come across in the book. There's a lot of darkness, but there's a lot of real lightness. And
I also think that like it really sort of it really shows the sort of fabric of your family and like how like everything sort of fits in, but how you're telling your
well, it was a
version of
story
it,
that was so told so many times by journalists. Every interview I've done, in my whole life has started off with, the same stories and the same people. And so this was sort of my chance. But I think what the book hopefully accomplishes is that really quickly it doesn't really matter who is Martha Wainwright, Rufus Wainwright, or whoever. It's a family story, and it's things that affect families overall: death, divorce, decision making, abortions, drug and alcohol problem, whatever, and finding your place and your role in it, and trying to undo some of the damage that your parents.
Yeah, and but I appreciated too that everybody has their way of singing that truth about what's happening. Like that just felt really sort of cathartic, in a way. We're getting close to the end here, but I want to ask you two more questions. One, I want to talk about Montreal as a city and how Montreal, because I just moved back, and thank you so much for welcoming me into the loving arms of the artistic community here. But how do you feel Montreal has informed and influenced who you are and how you can be who you are?
Right. Well, I've lived between Montreal and New York City my whole life, back and forth, going down on the 87. I'm American and Canadian, so there's a lot of duality there, and I've always appreciated being a little out of place in both, and I've always used that in my songs and never been quite, fully hometown anywhere, And so the backdrop of Montreal, because I've been back here for 12 years, as an artist, I would have only stayed here if I felt that it was serving my art and my family. And so and how to take advantage of a city and a place is so important.
Yeah.
And take advantage of what it has to offer,
Yep.
whether that's cross-country skiing today or
Snowshoeing.
yeah, exactly, or putting your kids in school in French so that they learn a second language, or spending time, with my extended family. So there was all of these things that I was able to do with the city that I live in that I could not have done in New York City or
Ursa
Los
as
Angeles.
well. Maybe you can talk about that a little.
Exactly. And so I definitely was committed to squeeze the most out of Montreal that I could, that made sense for me. I've made 2 records here so far that I think are really kind of Montreal as a backdrop of it. But then I started a club. It was about 6 years ago because I was going to be here a lot more, and I wasn't going to be able to be on the road all the time because I had 2 small children, 2 kids, and so I was like, what the fuck am I going to do all day long in Montreal if I don't have a day job?
Yeah.
And I'd always fantasized about having a music club, but more like being in the kitchen and like having an apron and cooking and then getting up and singing a song, kind of like an Anna Magnani character or something. Like, I don't even know where this idea came from, but I made it happen, and I got a building, and I ran this club for 5 years with my partner Nico, and it was really incredible. And I did do a lot of the cooking, and we constructed it, and everything was. We made the curtains. This is the room originally. I ran a kids camp there because during COVID you came and did a workshop with the kids. Yep. The space was crazy. And then after 5 years, I was like, I need to make a living. So now it's still going. It's called Le Petit Ours, and it's run by the people who run Casa del Popolo and Sala Rosa, who actually know what they're doing. So that's good. It's still there, which is great.
Yeah, and let's see. What can we finish off on? What's next for you?
Well, sure. Let's
dig in there.
So I just came back a couple weeks ago. I did the show in New York City, which was really great, and it was kind of it was the first time, not the first time, but it was really an interesting show because it really brought. It happened organically and naturally and quickly because I had been doing these Laura Nyro songs, but then we were still in the 20th anniversary of my first record, but then I had these 4 or 5 brand new songs that I'm writing, and then there was a Piaf album, and I got some friends of mine who are string players, and I had a quartet, which I'd never done, and so I ended up doing all these different things on stage, and it really was like, this is what happens when you've done something for 30 years.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, there is a lot.
Start to pull,
yeah. You're sort of pulling from all this stuff. But in the show, we did 5 new songs, and I have another couple that are happening, and so I'm writing a new record.
Yay.
I'm very excited about it. I think a lot of it's going to be voice and guitar, which I've never done a record of voice and guitar. I play a lot solo, but I've always sort of had bass, drums, guitar, electric guitar, and keyboards. So I'm going to try and strip it down.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
I love that. Yeah. We're going to open it up to questions, but Martha, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you so much, Cecil. Thank you.
I love you. You're the best.
Thank you so much, Cecil. Thank you.
As you see, we could probably talk for like another 2
Yeah, I know.
hours. I mean, I
Exactly.
have like 50 questions that we didn't get to. But we're going to open it up to public questions. So I think there's a person with a microphone on either side. And so if you have a question, maybe raise your hand and...
There's someone at the back.
Start over here.
Hi, Martha. Thanks for doing this tonight.
Yes.
How do you deal with rejection? Like, especially when you're someone and you think you're, like, not that bad at what you do, but you get a lot of no's.
Getting a lot of no's from, well, my first record that you mentioned came out in 2005, and my first cassette that I did was in 1997. So for 8 years, I tried to get signed, and nobody would sign me, and that was even with family in the business. And so it was hard to do it, and I found myself. A lot of it was, I don't want to say it was my own fault, but I would do a thing where, if I would do a show and there was something like really important in the audience, some record company that some label that I wanted to be on, I would like get shit-faced and do a bad show. And then when there was like no one in the audience, I was great, and so, and then I wondered, like, did I, it was my path. That was what had to happen, and it wasn't until after playing shows night after, even beyond that into my 30s, that I finally felt like I knew what I was doing. There was so much uncertainty until, today. So I can't help you. Keep it up.
Any questions on the other side?
There's someone here in an orange shirt, or is there someone over there? I'm not scary.
Here,
There's someone
right
over
here.
Someone here, and then we'll go down to you, sir.
All right, you ready for this question?
Yeah.
How do you describe yourself as a symbol of hope to the world with your musical performances?
Wow. Well, one of the things that people tell me, and more, when I play, is that I seem to, they use the word in French mostly, vous avez beaucoup de liberté quand tu joues. And I'm always surprised because I'm thinking you have no idea that I have to, no, but that people seem to feel that there's a lot of freedom that I'm expressing on stage, freedom to say what I want, or movement, or freedom of expression. And I get the sense that that's something that really resonates with people. So I think that, hopefully, I think that might be a connection or something that I do that people appreciate and people find hopeful, if that answers your question. Yes, you down here.
Hi.
Hi.
You mentioned just in the new album doing something you hadn't done before by doing it stripped down in that particular way. So kind of to take the other side of you being able to bring in all of these things that you've learned and all that, what's the white whale, castle in the sky? I've never tried this ridiculous project that's probably ridiculous that would be something you would just take a stab at even if it's insane.
Well, it all seems so scary, any of it seems scary, but I'm afraid to say it out loud. I don't.
But you have something. You have something in your mind that
What I'm going to try and do for this next record is to do a voice and guitar album, which is really hard to do because you have to perform and play at the same time. And I don't think there's that many examples, especially of women who have done that. But I'm also wanting for some of that material to be done with orchestration. And so I will try to write some of the orchestration myself on keyboard, but we'll see how far that gets. But I think that would be a really big deal for me. I mean, the thing that I always wanted and dream of being is a great, legendary artist and songwriter. So that's what I'm just constantly trying to do.
Hello. Oh my gosh. Hi. I'm wondering. I myself am someone who's new to Montreal, and I'm not familiar. I know it's a wealth of art and creativity and beauty, but it's still so overwhelming and nebulous to me. I'm just curious when you've talked about collabs and things, and just what does it look like? What does it mean? Yeah. What does it look like to be in artistic community here and with other people?
Well, I think this city is really, especially for young people, I think it's like extremely rich. I mean, the club that I ran for years was called Ursa, and it was this really small venue. And so the people who came to play there were really, just young bands and young poets, and so I think going to the small clubs that we have, and you're gonna see, some great local young artists doing things. That's where I see the strength in the city. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think like when we were coming up, it was like Cafe Phoenix.
Yeah.
And that was like my hub, and you was like Cafe Sarajevo, and
bars.
Yeah,
Just go
the
to a
Biff
lot of
Tech,
bars.
And it's like
Go to bars.
and it's like that's where like the sort of like community.
Yeah, that's where that. Now I don't. That was a while ago, so maybe that's not where.
Well,
people
no, that's
hang,
not where
right?
people
Yeah.
are. But I think it's the same thing, like with Ursa or like small places.
Small places.
Yeah,
And also, what I think Montreal, is it's hard to accomplish because it's hard. There's linguistic barriers, but really, if you can enjoy the arts from both languages, French bands and English bands, and vice versa. Because if you can be a part of both those things, I think that's remarkable.
Yeah, and I was saying backstage, because I'm new back here too, and I was saying that I think one of the greatest things about Montreal is that it's a real place to incubate your wildest ideas, because it's sort of a safe artistic
it's more
incubator.
safe, and it's not as like when I was young writing songs here and playing a lot, there was a feeling of you could kind of do anything. And then when I got down to New York, or when Rufus went to LA, there was this very competitive edge, and there's like, oh, there's 20 other people doing exactly what I'm fucking doing, and you can kind of be like, shit, whereas I found here there was a little bit more of a freedom to be explorative and weird. Yeah, which is good.
Agreed.
I have a question over here. Before you talked about the process about preserving your voice, can you talk to us a little bit about that? And also, do you still smoke?
No, I don't smoke. I mean, I smoke at like New Year's and things, but so I about 15 years ago or a little bit more, I started doing vocal exercises before I sing, because it was really important, because I was losing my voice a lot, I stopped smoking pretty much, and doing just voice. I need to warm up, because I sing. I'm like an over singer, so I am an intense singer. So those warm ups are really important, and so that's been really good, because it could have gone badly. And sometimes it happens. Recently I was in Australia, and I lost my voice, and it was like a tour that was like 3 years in the planning, and lots of money on the line, and lots of musicians, and so much work had gone into this, and flights and big shows, and I had zero voice, and it was so scary. I did the first show, and then the second show I got there, and I called the doctor, the promoter, and got drugs like cortisone, which singers have to do. It's like an emergency situation, and but it hadn't kicked in yet, and because it takes a while, and it's really bad for you because it masks the issue, but it's something that sometimes you got to do, and I couldn't get through the sound check, and I had to cancel the show an hour before the show. And, there was like 500 people or more expected to come. And I was like crying backstage, and I was like, God, it was such such a terrible, scary feeling when you lose the thing that you think is everything you got, and you're just like, it was really hard, to deal with it. And it was like a mental thing too, where you just have to like, who am I without this? Who am I without this? And how am I going to get through? And I got through the tour, and didn't talk during the day. It was hard, but it was just scary.
Hi. What's something that inspires you or gives you hope today?
Oh, it's a tough question today, isn't it? It's like I feel like, I don't, I sometimes so artists sometimes I feel as an artist like I should be doing more with the platform that I have to address things that are horrific. But I don't do it because I don't know, I just feel like I'm not an expert on the subject, or I don't know what I can offer. And so sometimes I feel bad about not doing more. But then when I go to Richmond, Quebec, in the convent, and I do my show, and I have moments of openness and togetherness with the audience, and we feel something together, and it's like we're surviving, this terrible and difficult time and world, and that's a lot.
I feel like you did do that on the Jimmy Fallon show when you did Save the Country.
That was really
It was powerful.
That was powerful. That's
Yeah.
a Laura Nyro song. I was supposed to do this other song called "You Don't Love Me When I Cry," and then the decided the night before to change it up, which is in television they don't like you to do that.
Yeah.
But and I think what that was that I'm not good at writing protest songs, but I'm good at singing them. So I should just sing other people's protest songs.
Yeah.
That's what I should
Do
do.
it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for reminding me to do more.
One last question.
Yeah.
No pressure. Hey, Martha. In terms of drawing on your own life for material, what has changed from being younger to now? Not necessarily in terms of content, but what do you latch onto and what do you let go of?
So interesting. That's good. So I, the earlier songs were so they were very navel-gazing in a great way, but really. And so in more recent years, I thought, God, I should really try and write songs about fictional characters or also because I was writing songs about people and it was getting me in trouble. It was getting me divorced and people weren't talking to me anymore. So I was like, I really should cut this shit out, And also, I had children and I could talk shit about anybody till the cows come home, but when you have kids, you don't want to say bad things about the other parent. You don't want to be flippant about stuff because they're listening to you. So I had to adjust. I had to, or find ways. And it was a really good exercise for me because both of my parents wrote songs about their divorce, and it was detrimental to my brother and I think they should have shut their mouths about it. But anyways, so I have been trying to, sort of start somewhere else. It is harder I'm 49, I'll be 50 in May. It's harder, it's not as emotionally wrought to songwrite about, love and sex and all these things as it is when you're 20. It is a different feeling. So I put myself in different situations. I'm like, oh, my friend's having an affair. Maybe I'll write as if I'm having an affair. Like anything, you know what I mean? But then what's so interesting is that you kind of have these starting points where you think there's some drama and there's some good there. But then really quickly, it's really about me. Right out by the third line, I'm like, oh, no, I'm actually just thinking about myself. I want to have an affair. Okay, great. Okay, no. So to answer your question, it did definitely change. It had to become more responsible, and then also just more outward gazing. I don't know if that was a great answer, but sorry.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Just stand there for us. Thank you. Thank you so much, Martha and Cecil, for such an inspiring conversation. And thank you all again for being here with us tonight. Feel all free to stay here a little bit longer and enjoy refreshments and conversations with us in the lounge. And to our VIPs, we would love to take a group picture, so please come on stage. Merci à tous et toutes d'avoir été présents ce soir.